Hey, Adventure Girls. Welcome to the Adventure Girls Why She Adventures speaker conversation, where we get to have good, juicy conversations with amazing women throughout New Zealand about why they adventure, how it all came into their life, what lights them up, all of the cool shit that you want to hear. And today I've got a super awesome lady who is a wealth of knowledge. If you have kids and you want to adventure, she is the lady you need to talk to, which aptly her business is named Outdoorsy, and you can find her on Facebook under The Outdoorsy Mama. So I want to welcome Michelle to today's conversation about tapping into the outdoors for your own mental wellness and health and wellness, how you can take your kids along, and how you can do that without all having the need to take your hubby along with you. So welcome along, Michelle.
Hey, Senka. It's cool to be here. Thanks for having me.
You are totally welcome. I love it. We just had some good, juicy conversation just about how I was going to say the business, but it's not technically a business yet, is it? It's like a passion project for you.
Yeah,
how Outdoorsy Mama. Yeah, your community. How that all came about. So, which I totally love. So, for all those ladies that are out, all these mamas that are out here, I would love for them to know how you kind of got started with Outdoorsy Mama. What was the inspiration or the tipping point or the thing that you went, you know what? There are women out here that need to know how they can do this stuff with kids.
Cool. Okay. Well, I started Outdoorsy NZ probably about 4 years ago now. I've got two boys. I've got Nate, who's 6, and I've got Tasman, who's 2. And I guess Nate was about 2 or 2.5. And I just found that I wanted to spend more and more time outdoors because it just really helped me to kind of recalibrate from the chaos that can be motherhood. And so I was doing lots of little hikes with him, just trying to visit different regional parks, different beaches, getting out there and exploring. I found that he was a very active child. He still is. I guess kind of like puppies, the little boys and little girls need lots and lots of running around outdoors. And so I just found that getting outdoors for both of us just made the day so much better. For my mental health as well, I was quite lucky that I didn't suffer from any of that postnatal depression or anything like that. But I think that for any mum, it can be bloody hard. You know, it can sometimes you're over it, and especially if the weather is, shall we say, inclement, and you've just been stuck inside, and there's mountain laundry and kids wanting this and wanting that and wanting the other thing. I think it just it really helps to clear everybody's head if you can get outside and get a dose of nature into you. So so I was getting out and doing that as often as I could, and I had lots of friends who were always saying, "Oh my gosh, you're always doing all this cool shit. You know, how do you do it? How do you how do you get organized and do it?" And often I was doing it on my own because my husband's got a really full-on job as chef, and so he was often not around, working hard. So I just refused to be like the little wifey sitting at home waiting until the husband was available to get out and have some adventures. So it was one of those little red hen things where I'll just do it myself, she said, and she did. So I thought to myself, okay, well, there's other mums out there who, because I'm getting asked all the time, they want to know where to go and what to do and how to get organized and what to pack and how to keep safe. And, you know, for a lot of mums, I think, you know, it's a real confidence issue as well, especially going by yourself with your kids. Or maybe they wanted to meet some other mums to go with. So I definitely wanted to meet some other outdoorsy mums. I felt like, although I did have a lovely antenatal group who were just full of really nice people, but I quite often felt like, you know, a coffee group just doesn't quite cut it when you're feeling really adventurous. So so I would get out there with Nate and we'd have a lot of fun. And so I thought, right, I'll start writing a blog, and part of that would be to help other mums to see that you can get out there and do it and give them the confidence and a bit of inspiration and motivation to get out there with their kids. And also a small part of it as well, I really enjoyed doing it because I was documenting some of these adventures, and I really thought, you know, in the future it'll be really nice to look back on some of these blog posts and the pictures I was taking and videos I was making and stuff like that. So it was kind of a little bit of that as well. Yeah, so it just really started out as a blog, and then I started a Facebook group. And once I started a Facebook group, like a private one or a closed one, just for mums who wanted to get into the outdoors, that's when it really started taking off. So the Facebook group's called The Outdoorsy Mama, and there's about 2,500 mums in there now, and it's really active, and it is a great place to go and ask lots of questions about how to get outdoors, where to go, how to, you know, get your kids organised. Sometimes just getting out the door is a big mish, and to meet other people who might want to meet up with you. Yeah.
It's an awesome Facebook community. I'm not a mum, but I'm in the community because even as someone who doesn't have kids, there's lots of inspiration just in terms of locations and all that sort of stuff. So
yeah. A lot of people use it as well for planning their holidays and stuff. If they're going to a different part of New Zealand, or even if they're going somewhere in the South Pacific or Australia or whatever, a lot of the times people will say, you know, put a question on there saying, we're going here, you know, what should we do? Our kids are this age, what should we do? And just get so much cool information back. It's awesome.
So have you always been into the outdoors? Like you said, you know, once, you know, especially after you had the kids, it was like even more so you needed that outdoor respite from, I love it, fix. It's an addiction, let's be honest, or an obsession. Have you always been obsessed by the outdoors? Like prior to that, like were you already getting out and doing heaps of stuff before you had the kids?
Yeah. I've always been quite a sporty, outdoorsy kind of person. That probably started from when I was a kid. My parents were really keen sailors, and so I grew up in Auckland, and every weekend at school holidays we'd always be out there sailing. We'd go up the coast of the Bay of Islands or out to Great Barrier, and have lots of adventures around the beautiful Hauraki Gulf. So I'm so lucky to have such good solid memories from my childhood of having little adventures with my brother and sister, and climbing volcanoes and doing lots of swimming and snorkeling and all that kind of stuff, and just spending hours playing in the rock pools and things like that, you know. So I think that's probably where my outdoorsiness first sprung from. And then when I was a teenager, I really enjoyed getting into doing a bit of tramping and learning some bushcraft and getting out into the bush. It's really restorative, and I think that all young people should get the opportunity to do that, because especially these days where there's just so much anxiety around in our kids, and they've got so much more of a digital life. There's just so much more technology around now than when we were young, because we're such old lady sinks.
Hey girl.
But you know, we didn't
avoid the age conversation.
We didn't have cell phones and stuff, you know. So I think there's a lot more pressure on young kids, and if more of them could get outdoors, get out into the bush or get out on the water and stuff, then that just gives them so many more skills, and they learn that nature is a room that they've always got to go to, and you can really find solace there. That's how I feel about it anyway. Yeah, so I've done lots of cool stuff. I love snowboarding, surfing, sailing. Quite a watery person, I ended up sailing professionally, and I've done lots of offshore deliveries, and I've sailed a lot of places around the world, and worked on super yachts and stuff, and came back to New Zealand and ended up living in Central Otago. And I just loved it there as well, because I could do heaps of trail running. That's another passion of mine, mountain biking, and having a bit of time in the mountains. So I love the sea, and I love the mountains, and I love the bush, and everything in between.
That would be suffice to say that you are an outdoorsy mama then. That's so cool.
My kids don't have a choice.
Yeah. I love it, because it's like, and it's funny that you talk into that topic of like kids coming up in such a digital age, I don't have kids, so that's why I've got ladies like you in my network, because it's like for all those women that say, when I say add more fun and adventure, and they go, yeah, but you don't have kids, and I'm like, yeah, but I have friends that have kids and they don't make the kids their excuse for not getting out.
They're more of a reason.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like when you talk about like the whole digital age and all of that, like, when we were kids, we didn't have that stuff. Like we used to go camping as kids, and like I just remember it'd be like, okay, come back for lunch, and then we would go and explore, and we'd cut our knees and we'd do all this stuff, and it's like, but they're the memories that I have of life. Like that's what I remember about growing up, going camping. We've got a pretty big section at home, and we'd take the go-kart and we'd ride it all the way to the bottom, and to stop you had to spin it sideways up into the bush because you couldn't put your feet on the pedals to brake because it was just going so fast. But all that play is stuff that we remember. So I can't imagine how different that is now, bringing kids up in a digital age where, sure, we had a TV, but it's different when they're on devices and stuff like that. And I don't know if your kids are at an age where it's kind of having some impact or not.
Yeah, I think.
Or it's just something that you're starting to consider now.
I think I wrote an email newsletter recently, which obviously resonated with a lot of the mums in my community, because I had so much response from it. I had all these messages and emails, and so many people going, oh my gosh, that's exactly how I feel, or that's what I needed to hear right now. It's basically, I was talking about the fact that when I think back to my childhood, the best memories, the ones that really stand out in my mind are all outdoor ones. They're all, all those times just playing in the rock pools, or spending all afternoon sitting up a tree, all the cool fun, all those awesome things that you did. You don't really remember kind of sitting there watching TV all the time, that program that you watched once when you were 7. I don't know, it's just not really I think it really, really hit home for me that what we're doing is with our kids is we're creating their memories. We're creating their childhood memories now, and it's quite a big responsibility. I feel like I want my kids to have great childhood memories, and it gives them such a good grounding, moving forward. And I hope that although they're still only young, 2 and 6, that if they've got this really good foundation of spending time outdoors and knowing that that's always a place for them, then as they get older and more of that technology does start to kind of take over their lives, or if they're facing any issues with anxiety or anything like that, it'll really help them, because they know that that they can go and do these things, and it kind of recharges them or resettles them, or I haven't had a huge issue with it yet, because the boys are still so young, but I'm preparing for it. And I think that by getting them to spend as much time outdoors as possible now, and getting them into it, then hopefully later on we won't have too many issues.
It's such a even, and it's so interesting how easily we can transfer that very same conversation about the memories we're creating for kids and technology, and then how we can drag and drop that actually to like us women adults where it's like peeling ourselves away from our technology and our day-to-day life, so we can get that space that you can't get anywhere except when you go to nature. Because it's like I know after a busy day that it's like the one thing that clears my head straight away is just getting outdoors, whether that's going for a trail run, or just like I've got a 4-wheel drive track, I can just take the truck up, and then I'm at the top of the Port Hills and just taking a 2-minute walk to a bench that I can overlook the Southern Alps and watch the sunset. Like, it doesn't have to be like getting out and burning tons of energy. It's just that physical space that nature seems to provide that gives you the space in your head. So
yeah, it does. It's really clarifying, and especially when you've got kids as well, and you're starting to feel like your patience is completely wearing thin. that's when I find the best thing to do is just gather everybody up and get outside, you know, whether it's we've got a little trig station, a trig point about 15 minutes walk from our house, and quite often I would have started cooking dinner or something, and I'm getting or they're fighting or whatever, and I'm right, okay, and I'll just shove it all into containers, and we'll head up there and eat up there, and it's just, yeah, it makes things so much better. And by the time we all get back down, you know, everybody's calmed down a wee bit, and we can get into a good zone for, you know, bedtime and that kind of stuff. So yeah,
I love that. I love how that's like just one real simple way to get the kids outdoors, like in part of your everyday life, because, you know, I know that we're all busy humans, and then, you know, you add looking after kids into that mix and stuff like that. It's like, what other things do you do that help get that everyday adventure or adventure into your everyday life, and including the kids in that? Because I guess there's probably some mamas out there just going, okay, so now I'm inspired, I want to get my kids outdoors more, but how the freaking hell do you do that? Like, you know.
Well, definitely I would say the biggest challenge facing most of the mums in my community when it comes to getting outdoors is time, for sure. But I think what it comes down to, without sounding too trite, is really prioritizing. You've got to think to yourself, okay, this is something that's actually really going to make a big difference in all of our lives, so how can we make it happen? And there's lots of little things that you can do to fit more of the outdoors in, and even if it comes to something like getting up half an hour earlier and taking your breakfast and just eating it on the beach on the way to school, or eating it in the park on the way to school. I would really suggest that people make a list as well, and have it on their fridge. So if you just spend maybe 20 minutes doing a bit of research about what there is around in your local area, so that at least when you do have a spare half an hour or something, or you've blocked out an afternoon and the weekend that you're going to go and do something together outdoors, then you're not just all kind of looking at each other going, oh, well, okay, well, where should we go? I can't think of anything. I don't know where to go, you know, and then you end up just putting a movie on or something. So yeah, that's a really good thing for your toolbox, is to have a list of places that you do want to go on adventure, and just try and get a few ones that are of different lengths. So if you wanted to do a full day trip somewhere, just write down maybe a couple of the regional parks that are close to you that you've never maybe been to, or look up the Department of Conservation website and look up some local hiking trails that are, you know, within 45 minutes drive of your house or something like that, and just make a list of the ones that you can do with your kids. Yeah, there's all sorts of things. If you think about caves, waterfalls, rivers, bushwalks, all sorts of different outdoorsy things, different beaches and things that you can go to. If you just do a bit of a search, you know, hot springs or hot pools, all those different things are things that you could do a mission. You could even make it your theme for the month. You could say, right, okay, so July is going to be waterfall month, August is going to be hot pools month, you know, and actually research what's around you and what's accessible, and then tick them all off as you go and make sure that you actually do them. You really have to plan ahead a little bit as well, and especially if your kids are doing a lot of sport too, just sit down with your calendar for 5 minutes and have a look, and block out the commitments that you've already got, and then just see when you might have half a day or even just a couple of hours, you know, every single weekend to go out and do something fun together. Find a bike trail to do together, or a walk, or, you know, hot pools or something like that. And yeah, so it's there's little things that you can do like that. Another cool thing to do is, if your kids, a lot of people have a, you know, tradition of story at bedtime, or why not actually wrap everybody up in blankets and put a few cushions on the deck outside or in your back garden, and take torches and read the stories outside, and then do a bit of stargazing and then go to bed. Yeah, just try and think about all those everyday things that are in your routine. What are some of the things that you could actually be doing outdoors if you really did make the effort? Another thing, of course, is gear. Just make sure that you've got all the gear that you need. And the two things that you don't want your kids to be is wet and cold. Well, you don't want to be either. But yeah, as long as you've got, just get some really good good thermals, good outerwear, really good raincoats and overalls if you've got real little ones, and hats and stuff, and just keep one of those plastic flexi tubs in the back of your car so that you're always ready, so that you can just be spontaneous sometimes and go, oh cool, okay, let's just stop there, just maybe keep a bottle of water or a few snacks in the back there, that you've always got something ready if you just want to jump out and explore something new, if you've got half an hour to spare or whatever. Yeah, quite often I find places just by driving past, and you might have seen like maybe a dock sign or something, and you've driven past there maybe 7 times and never actually stopped to see what it was. Well, one day you might have the time to actually just stop and go, okay, stuff it, look, we've got half an hour till that we've got to be at that appointment, let's explore this now. And yeah, just go for it.
I love that stuff. There's like, I ask one question and you get like 20,000 ideas on what women can do, and some really practical tips. And amongst that, like legitimately, I'm like making notes down here because I'm just like some great strategies to help mums get more outdoor time. So I love the fact about the like having a pre-prepared list, because that I can imagine that that's one thing that it's like you say, like when you have the free time, then what do you actually do with that? And it's so funny because I automatically relate it to even just being an adult. Any of the women that are watching that don't have kids, is the same challenge. We go, oh, we want to do all these cool things, but that's all just very great general kind of fluffy stuff up here, but you need to kind of ground some of that into some practical kind of like, okay, so like say when we do have that time, what are the things that we're going to do? And I just love the whole stuff about you saying that, getting away to things just that little bit earlier, so you've got 10 minutes to go and play a little bit more. So there's a fuck ton of really cool stuff and ideas in there. And like legitimately, if you're a mum and you have kids, this is all the stuff that you can get in the group that Michelle runs. So it's such a great resource. So so what do you like? I know like for yourself, it's like why you adventure, but do you think there's why do you think it's really good for mums especially to get out and do more adventure and have it in their lives?
Well, there's 2 facets to it, really. I think on the one side, it is really important for that we get out with our kids and that we instill a love for nature in our kids, and because kids need nature. With all that technological stuff we were talking about before, nature is just such a good tool to counterbalance that. But nature needs our kids as well. So another part of what I do is try to encourage people to get their kids to have more of a conservation ethic than we did, perhaps when we were young, or from the previous generation, because we all know that we haven't been treating our planet too well. So I think if kids grow up with a love for nature, they're much more likely to look after it. I think it's really important as mums that we teach our children that, and we take them outdoors and make them feel a sense of responsibility for this beautiful backyard that we've got as well. On the other kind of side to it as well is I think it's really important for mums to get some time out from their kids and just try to get their outdoorsy mojo back a bit. I think that a lot of us were really adventurous before we had kids, and then suddenly the kids come along and everything just becomes a bit too hard basket, but it doesn't have to be that way. We were talking before about how you can fit, little everyday things in. I think it's quite important for mums to have, even if it's just once a year, or hopefully more than that, but even if it's just once a year, that you can organise to get away with some other like-minded outdoorsy mums, girlfriends, and have an adventure. Actually, plan it, whether you all want to go down and hike the Rootburn track, or if you want to trail run that new Paparoa trail that they've got on the west coast. I really want to do that, you know, or mountain bike it, or whether you want to go scuba diving in Lord Howe Island, you know, whatever it is that you want to do. Plan an adventure every year and get away without your kids, and just tap into that adventurous person that you always have been. You know, it doesn't always have to change when you have kids. Take a couple of risks, you know, make sure you include something in there that absolutely makes you crap your pants because I think that really life is about the experiences that we have. When you're just bumbling along, or you're in your kind of comfort zone, and you're just moving through life, that's when time just goes so fast, and you're like, oh my God, holy crap, it's October already, and you know, where did the year go? It feels like it's only been 3 weeks long. But when you actually do something that you know, that challenges you, or something that really fires up those passions that you've got inside, that's the kind of thing that you'll look back later and go, oh my God, shit, yeah, that was freaking awesome, that was epic. And you just that's what life's about, all those adventures and those experiences. That's what adds the spice, you know, that's like the salt and pepper. Otherwise everything's a bit bland and mediocre, and Jesus, who wants that in their life? Not me, thank you.
No, a girl can never have, like, never wants too much beige in her life, right?
Silly.
It's so funny, like, just that whole, like, that sense of being alive, like, because it's like we get up and we sometimes just exist in our day-to-day stuff, you know, like routines are great, help keep you on track, but it's when those routines become mundane, and that mundane becomes that you're actually tapping out a little bit on life, and you're not fully engaging and thriving and all of that sort of stuff. So I love that you're saying, you know, get out on your own, mums, and go and do something that, like the words I use is always filling up your happy tank.
Yeah.
So something that like fills you up, that, like you say, lights you up, and you're just like, I did that. Yeah. I did that thing that I've always wanted to do, and I did it, and I did it for me. And I imagine that's such a great example, like, for your kids, to show them that, you know, even as adults, we get to, like, we're still growing through our own stuff. So super awesome.
It's not always easy, you know, trying to find childcare for your kids and getting away and all that kind of thing, but it's really, really important. And I think most of us have probably got partners who understand that we are much nicer people to be around if we get our outdoor fix, you know, pretty regularly. But it's just when you're young and before you have your kids, you're usually a lot more of a risk taker as well, and you know, you kind of feel like you're a bit more what's the word I'm looking for? Bulletproof. But after you have kids, I find that you don't really take so many risks, because you feel like, you know, you've got this responsibility to, you know, to be able to look after your children and all that kind of thing. But then your confidence just goes down in general. So if you can still try and just push things out just a little bit past your comfort zone, then you'll keep learning as well. And that's what life's all about, really, is just, you know, keep learning. That's what I want. I want to teach my boys that as well.
That's so nice. It's such a nice legacy to leave with them. So you just talked about, like, you know, when we were younger, we probably took more risks. So I love this question. And, like, if you could give your 18-year-old self a piece of advice about life's adventures and all that sort of stuff, where you are now and that, like, what piece of advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
Oh my gosh, that's quite a hard one.
Good juicy questions, right? Let's have some good conversation.
Yeah, I think it would be that to really, really consider that you're much more likely to regret the things that you didn't do. When you're trying to make a choice about whether to do something or not, you know, when you're 60 and looking back, or 70 or 80 or 90, you know, and looking back at all the cool things in your life that you've really enjoyed, what are the things that are really going to come to mind? And it's going to be, oh my gosh, that, all those cool things that you did do, and you're going to regret things a lot more if you didn't do them. You're going to think to yourself, oh, I really should have done that. Why didn't I just do it? So yeah, I think they're probably even when I was in my early 20s, I probably had a few opportunities that I just should have taken, and I think now. So yeah, so that would probably be my piece of advice back to my 18-year-old self, is that you're much more likely to regret not doing something than just grabbing it by the teeth and doing it.
Amen. That is so true. And it's like, even now, like, you can look, I think we can all honestly look back and go, yeah, there's definitely some times like I could have done that thing, like, or I wish I did. And it's like drawing a line in the sand, because sometimes it takes big life experiences for us to really shift our perception on what our priorities are and stuff like that. So we both spoke about losing our parents, one of our parents, and things like that. And sorry, I think that might have just cut out. There we go. And I know that we both spoke about, losing a parent and stuff like that. And it really does change the direction that you take in life. And me, when my mum passed away quite suddenly from, it was pneumonia, but she just wasn't looking after her diabetes, was actually kind of the thing that made it go so quick, made everything happen so quickly. That it just made me really regroup my entire life and go, what are the things, who are the people that matter, and what are the things that matter to me? Because it's different for everybody, right? Like, we all have different things that really matter to us. And it's like, and that's what I wanted to make sure I put more of. And so fun and adventure is right at the top of my values, like, having a life that's full of that. So it made me readjust everything, spending time with family that, that you love, and the people that, support and encourage you, and that sort of stuff. And and definitely adding more fun and adventure back into my life. So it's interesting that you talk about regret, because it's like, it's the thing that we don't want big life events to kick into people's lives, for them to go, I really should do something about my life being a little bit more fun and adventurous, right? Like,
and
why
I mean,
does it have to be that?
We're not necessarily talking about climbing freaking 7 peaks in 7 days backwards and blindfolded. It's just there's so much cool stuff that is accessible that we can do out there. You don't need dynamite under your ass to get out and do it.
Because you can have, that's the whole thing, is like, that's why I love all your tips, because they're so practical for having a juicy life now, like in your everyday part, that it's not just like you say those big 7 peaks. It's like, what can you do today? Where's 15 minutes you can just like fill your happy tank up with some more adventure and some more nature and some more juicy goodness and stuff like that. So,
and what's a little adventure that you and your child can plan together? Like, I quite like, because I've got 2 boys, I quite like doing things separately with them as well, every now and again, so that we can get some one-on-one time together. And in June, my son Nate, who's 6, he and I went and hiked up to the Pinnacles Hut in Coromandel, and he just adored that, because I involved him right from, we've already done some overnight hikes before, but this was the first one that he and I had just done together. And he just loved the whole planning thing. We were looking at the DOC website and looking at the different trails that you can take to get up there, and making a shopping list of, thinking about what we were going to have to eat, and going and buying the scroggin, and he could make up his own little mix from the pick and mix thing, and going and buying him a sleeping bag and stuff like that. He adored it, and we packed it all together. And then I took him out of school. We didn't go on a weekend. It made it even more exciting for him. And we went midweek, and it was just fantastic. I will remember that for the rest of my life, and I really hope that he does too. But yeah, just you can have these little micro things that you put in every day, and then you can have a weekend trip once a month, maybe on a Sunday, go somewhere as a family that you haven't been before, and then maybe once a term plan something like a weekend away, or a couple of days. hike like that, and then plan one big family thing every year, which could be, I don't know, a big camping trip somewhere, or take your bikes somewhere, visit, you know, if you're in the North Island, go to the South Island. If you're South Island, come to the North Island, you know, or just plan a bigger adventure. You can, it's kind of like the food pyramid, but of adventures.
Oh my God, that's awesome. I love it. I just totally pictured a pyramid of, like, you know, like everyday adventure, a little bit more time involved, dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
I was like, perfect. I'll half expect to see something pop up on the in the blog. It'll be like, here's your adventure pyramid. That's awesome. So what would be, given that you just talked about a whole bunch of adventures, you know, your everyday stuff, and then some things like, I love the fact that you got Nate involved in the planning, because it's like, what skills has he just learned about that, about being responsible, being free to make some choices? I'm sure you probably guided him in the direction, but you know, that he would have felt that he was on board and it was his whole thing. Like, I can just imagine from an experience for him.
Well. Yeah, you know, you've got to think about what could go wrong. I think that's one thing that probably puts quite a few mums off, is having the confidence, you know, what if things go wrong, you know, how do I keep my child safe, or how do you know. So but I think it's really, really character building for your child as well, for you to prep them for, you know, potential things that could go wrong. You know, what if mum fell down and twisted her ankle and couldn't walk? You know, what would we do then? You know, just going through a few different scenarios, and getting your child confident that they would actually be able to, they would know what to do if they needed to get help, or, you know, in those kind of situations, or that they know where the first aid kit is and they know what's in it because you've been through it together, or you made one up yourself and packed it up together and stuff like that. So you can use those things as, not as a, you know, something to put you off, but as a learning experience for your kid as well. Yeah,
that's amazing, because I just think, you know, how many mums out there are like just looking for more ways to connect with their children and stuff like that, and it's like everything that you've just talked about there is just these great opportunities to connect in, instead of putting them in front of a TV and, you know, leaving them off to go and watch YouTube or whatever. It's like these beautiful opportunities to engage with them and on different things, and teach them some things.
Teach them some stuff, and also ask them what they think about things, what their ideas, you know, how would they deal with this or that kind of situation. How do they think, what do they think would be a good meal to cook if you've only got one little gas cooker and one pot? You know, you know, instead of just kind of telling them everything, I think it's really good to ask them, and all these kind of open-ended questions where they don't just have to answer yes or no, or just listen to you on a big rant. You can really really get them to come up with some ideas and have some really good conversations around things. Like, quite often, you know, when your kids have been at school all day and you pick them up and you're walking home from school, or you're driving or whatever, and you ask them, oh, how was your day? Oh, good. You know, oh, what did you do at school today? Oh, stuff. You know, you kind of get the one syllable answer, because they're the one word, one syllable answer, partly because they're probably all quite, brain is a bit overwhelmed. They've been absorbing all this information all day, and then the last thing that they probably want to do is have a great big yarn with you at the end of it. So yeah, I find that's another really cool advantage from getting outdoors with your kids, is I have some of the best discussions with my kids when we're out in nature, because they just suddenly, you know, come out with all this stuff, and they're asking questions about this, that, and the other thing, and making up a story about the tui over there, and yeah, and I don't know, their wee personalities really come out. It's really cool.
Funny when you give people space, right, to just open up and share and connect, that they will, like, you know, little humans and big humans all alike. So that's awesome. So what I would love to know, what would be 3 of your top let's call them adventure girls must do with kids things in New Zealand? So if there's some mamas out there and they're like, okay, so I'm inspired, and I love the stuff that you talk about, and okay, I want to get started. So what would be, let's do that. Let's hone in on starter stuff. So I do a little bit of hiking. What's some What's 3 of your favorite places to take the kids that makes it really accessible if they're just getting into it? So they can go, okay, Michelle recommended these, so I'm putting them on my Adventure Girls must do list.
We've got mums from all around the country and some mums from overseas in our group. So although I'm based in the North Island, I know that there's some mums who do some really cool stuff down south as well. I know that from up around here in Auckland, it's a real bummer because although we've got the biggest population here, we have hardly any huts that are doable within a weekend. It's such a shame, and that's one thing I'd really like to change in my lifetime, is try and get a couple more huts accessible for that are family friendly. But there's a really cool one up in the Whangarei Heads, which is called Peach Cove, and it is a really awesome one to take your kids to, because it's not too far from the road end. It does involve a bit of a hill on the way there and coming back up quite a few steps on the way back, but it's nothing that your kid won't be able to handle. Nate did it when he was 4, and I know other kids who did it when they were 3, so it's just about taking your time. But the cool thing about this little hut at Peach Cove is that you've got 2 really cool beaches close to the hut to swim. You've got, or even just for rock hopping, and if you go in winter time, you can book the hut, and not all huts in New Zealand are bookable. So if you're going to be taking the kids, it's probably a good idea to go to one that you can actually book, because then you know that you're going to have beds there when you arrive. There's kiwi at Peach Cove. So and the Whangarei Heads is just so amazing. Even just lying in your bunk at night, you can quite often hear them. So you can prep your kids beforehand by looking online and hearing some kiwi calls online, so that the kids know what to listen out for. And some people are lucky enough to even see them. You can go out with it if you put red cellophane over the end of your torch. That gives you enough a good red light to get out, so you're not going to freak the birds out, but you might just be lucky enough to see one. So and it's just beautiful. The bush is just beautiful, Northland Coastal Forest, and it's a really cool spot. So I would say put Peach Cove Hut on your list.
Awesome. How long's the walk from the beach to the hut? Just sort of roughly. I know obviously how long's a piece of string with kids, but
from the car park to the hut is about an hour and a half. And
perfect.
And then from the hut to the beach is like just 2 minutes.
That's
around the other
side.
So the beach is only accessible either by walking or by boat. So there won't be anybody else. It's not like there's going to be tons and tons of people there or anything. So it's a really cool one.
And that's golden.
It's about 2.5 hours drive from Auckland to the car park. So
that sounds super accessible
for a weekend. So if you just Google Peach Cove, you'll be able to see that one. So that's one. That's kind of, I suppose, for Auckland people. I think there's a couple that at the top of my mind, I suppose, that that families that I know from the group have done. You can walk to the first part of the Rootburn track on the Rootburn Flats, and the hut's only, I think, 2 hours.
Yes.
So, but it's pretty flat, so that's totally doable with kids. You could do the whole one. If your kids are a little bit older, you could definitely do the whole track, but that's an option, not too far from Queenstown. I know that around in Wellington, there's lots of tracks and trails around in the Tararuas that have got some huts. I think there's 2 huts that are probably doable with kids. And Christchurch, I'm not so aware of. I know that there's definitely lots of huts there, but I just can't think off the top of my head.
That's so cool. We just needed 3.
I'm sorry.
Like 3? No, I mean, like all of them is great, but like specific ones like that Peach Cove hut, the Rootburn, which is totally true. I walked the Rootburn myself, and it is it's a really nice. I mean, it's a great walk. So the path itself is nice and wide and manageable, and it's a really nice outlook when you get there to that. So Yeah,
And then,
that's
of
super
course,
awesome.
sorry, one other thing I was definitely wanted to say was, because we talked about conservation before, there are so many awesome sanctuaries around the country. So I would highly recommend that you look up what is close to you so that you can take your kids and they will learn so much. It's awesome. There's the Pukaha Mount Bruce, which is in the Wairarapa. There's the Mongatotare Sanctuary, which is in the Waikato. Tiritirimātangi Island, which I know you've been to a couple of times as
I
well.
love that place.
It is
Oh
so
my
cool.
gosh.
Yeah,
Oh.
you can we've done 2 trips actually with the Outdoorsy Mama. We've taken about,
And you can
15
overnight there
mums and
too.
kids. Yeah, and we stayed in the heart and we had the most amazing time. We saw a kiwi, which is so cool.
Oh yes.
There as well.
That's where I saw my very first kiwi
in the
in
wild.
real life. In the
Same,
wild, yeah.
same.
And then of course they've got the takahe as well that you see. So they're endangered.
So that's really cool. And also there's Kapiti Island. You can book to go there. Look up the sanctuaries because they need your support and your help, and it's also just a fantastic learning experience for your kids too.
Holy shit. See, I love it. I'll ask one question and get 50,000 answers. It's awesome because there are just so many places, and that's like for all those mums that are watching this, and even the women that are watching this that don't have kids who are just like fully inspired anyway. It's like, it is like, so much of it is like where to start. Where do I start with that thing? I've got the idea, I've got the inspiration. I used to do it and I haven't been doing it for ages. So where do I start again? Or I haven't done it and where do I start? And having communities like what you've created with the Outdoorsy Mama it's just like, I want to say thank you because it creates a space that women can come along, mums can come along and go, okay, I've got this question. I don't want to sound like a dick asking it to, people who don't know. It's so supportive and encouraging and inspiring because it's like, okay, no questions are silly questions, so just ask and we'll support you and tell you how you can do it. So, so thank you for setting up something like that. That's
my pleasure.
Such a space that it's like, it makes it, really easy because you offer so many resources I know all the ladies and like I said, I'm in the community. I'm not even a mum. But I chip in with some ideas when with anything that I've done with Adventure Girls that can be relevant in there. But yeah, you've just created this amazing community of women for that. So anyone who's watching this interview, this conversation, like if you're a mum and you need to get into the outdoors, like join, like just get into the group. It's a free community that Michelle's got going. So yeah. So let's wrap up on I love a good question, a good juicy question. What's one message that you have for women who want to have more fun and adventure in their lives, but they're afraid to take that step?
Have a look at where your fear is coming from, because there'll be a reason, there'll be something behind it. And sit down with a girlfriend, get yourself a nice glass of vino or a coffee or whatever your thing is, nice cold beer one day maybe, and just have a really good chat about the barriers that you put on yourself, maybe, especially if it's someone who knows you really, really well. And sometimes it can be really good to get somebody else's perspective and really look at where that fear is coming from, and then really think about your want, what you really want, and if you do really want to be spending more time outdoors to get more of that adventure back in your life, then just try and focus on actually on the want rather than on the fear that's holding it back. Confidence is something that grows and grows and grows. It's something that can be depleted a little bit if you let it, but if you don't want to let it, that's what I was talking about. It's a bit of a roundabout way of saying it. That's why I think you really need to focus on the end result. What's your desire and your need, and if it really is to be a more confident person and to be a more adventurous person and to have more time in the outdoors, then you can actually kick that fear to the curb and say, no, actually, I don't want to be afraid of you. I don't want to be afraid of that. I'm not going to let that stop me. I'm going to go out there and have a kick-ass time, and it's going to be amazing. And every little thing that you do, your confidence will start growing back up again more and more and more, and you'll soon find yourself tackling things that you never thought that you would have. So yeah, that's what I guess I would say. Think about where the fear is coming from, and if you need help from somebody else who knows you well, to have a chat about it, to try and unpack it all, because sometimes it's not always easy when you're just having a conversation with yourself about something. And then have a really good think about what it is that you do really want, and focus on that and not on the fear.
Perfect. That's such a stunning piece of advice. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So if a woman want to, if mums out there want to be inspired by what you do and need some help with resources, what's the best way that these future outdoorsy mamas can get a hold of you?
Well, the best way is really jump onto Facebook and join our Facebook group. So it's the Outdoorsy Mama, Mama spelled M-A-M-A, and if you just search that, you should find us. And on Instagram as well, you can check out Outdoorsy NZ on Instagram, and feel free to send me a DM if you've got any personal questions, or if there's any kind of issues or things that have come up from for you when you've been watching this interview. I'd love to help you. We'd love to have you join the community. One of the best things for me that's come out of it as well is making some awesome new friends. It's really cool to know that there are so many like-minded outdoorsy mums out there, and so you've got that all ahead of you. You never know who you might meet and the amazing adventures that you might have. So please do come and join us. We'd love to have you.
Oh, awesome. It's been such a pleasure having you, Michelle. I just loved every minute of this conversation. I love that we get to have all the good juicy stuff, and then just like the good conversation about the mind stuff, and then some real practical tips to ground it all and go, okay, cool, take it from concept into action. So I'm excited.
Do it.
Yeah. Amen. Amen, sister. Awesome. All right. Well, all you adventure girls out there and all you outdoorsy mamas, go and check out Michelle's community. I guarantee you'll love all the ladies that are in there. They're pretty much like her, rad, outdoorsy go-getters who just want to have more adventure in their lives and stuff like that. So thanks very much, Michelle. We'll talk again soon.
Cheers, Senka. See ya.
Bye. Bye.